Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this conversation. My name is Ilaria Boffa, and I'm the Social Impact and Account Manager for 6 Seconds Europe, and I'm based in Italy. And I'm so glad today to have these beautiful panelists here with me. Arran Stibbe, Professor Arran Stibbe, already joined us this year for another webinar, and today on this one about language and the impact that language has on emotions and actions. And then we have researchers and ecolinguistics, linguists Jessica Hampton and Mariana Roccia with me that will share their experience and their work with Professor Arran. I just want to start just to introduce the topic, the theme of today, that for 6 seconds is really relevant. And for those of you who maybe do not know our organization, 6 Seconds is the leading organization on emotional intelligence and social emotional learning, working with schools, but also universities and business. So really trying to spread emotional intelligence everywhere, all the time, we say. And our vision is to have 1 billion people practicing emotional intelligence by 2039, because 2039 is the date when our founder will turn 100. And so we wish her really health, and hopefully she will see this beautiful achievement, and we will celebrate together. Hopefully, we are now millions practicing. Not it's far, and 2039 is quite near. But anyway, we are working towards that. And so today the theme is language and the impact of language on emotions and actions. So when I interacted with Arran and Jessica and Mariana, in my mind, I had this idea that language really drives emotions. So the way we write things, the words that we use, the stories that we tell, the narratives that we tell really has an emotional impact on people. And as we know, in 6 seconds, emotions then drive actions. So the connection is between language and action is very, very close. So the way we talk, the way we write has a direct impact on, on our actions, on what we do or what we can do. And that's why we're here today. So, Arran, can you please just share with us why the course that you and your team created, thought of, and so just describe a little bit what is this program and project.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm very pleased to be joining you again. Sorry if I look a bit dark. There's something wrong with my camera. I'm not actually sitting in the dark. We're going to talk today about the Stories We Live By free online course that has been going 7 years now, and it's quite successful. So recently, the number of people who are taking the course has gone up to 3,500. Which is not bad after 7 years. So there have been many thousands of people who've taken it. And the course of Stories We Live By, it's revealing the stories that underpin our unequal and unsustainable civilization. So it's stories about consumerism, about how buying these products will make you into a new and better person. Stories about economic growth and how the most important thing that society can do is to get richer and have more profit, and the economy just to be bigger. Stories about nature, that nature is just a machine, or is just an object, or is nature's just a resource for us to use and exploit. And all of these stories are underpinning our society, and our society is unsustainable. And that only really means one thing. It means it can't continue into the future. That's what unsustainable means. Our entire civilization cannot continue into the future, which means that either it needs to change dramatically, or it will collapse and a new civilization will need to be built in its wake. And the Stories We Live By course prepares for either scenario. It prepares for either fundamentally changing the stories that we live by and creating a new sustainable society, or if we can't manage that, and the indications are that we're very, very far from managing that, then it's to help provide new stories to live by as we rebuild a new ecological civilization. So that's what the course is about. And Jessica and I do most of the running of the course, and Mariana looks at the impact of the course and has some fascinating materials about that. I'll say more later.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arran. And I'm also curious, and I think then we'll talk about this, about the impact on youth well-being. And so the way they also hear about climate change, they are listening to television and reading about the predicament that we are living now. We know that they are experiencing eco anxiety, so this will be also something that I like to discuss with you after going a little bit in depth with the impact research also that Arran mentioned. So Jessica, can you tell a little, Mariana, sorry, a little bit more about the impact research that you work on for
Yes,
this
thank you
course?
very much, Laria. And I have perhaps the opposite problem of Aaron. I'm glowing too much, so I apologize for that. But I'm right by the window. This is the best place I could be in at the moment. So yes, so I've been tracking the impact of a free online course, The Stories We Live By, since 2019. And so part of the process involves reaching out to those who have engaged with the course and the materials to learn about their experiences, obviously, and also to find out particularly what has changed, what new insights they gathered from the course, if there have been any changes in their practices, in their lifestyles, in their, overall, what has changed. And so data would normally come from interviews, testimonials, email interviews, Zoom meetings, and surveys. So um, with the course participants. And I think another useful and perhaps the most readily available source of data that we have at the moment are the course certificate forms. So when people complete the course, they can apply for a certificate. And in order to do this, they have to fill in a form that encourages them to reflect on their learning process and basically tell us a little bit about the impact the course has had on their lives in approximately 500 words. And it's great to see how people sort of elaborate further. And of course,
A kind of
they are
story for them, their own
yeah,
story, right? With
it
the
is.
course.
It's
Yeah.
retelling
Mm.
what has changed, and then obviously you start seeing patterns that emerge, which is fascinating. And so then they are asked obviously to give their consent for this type of research. So as you can see, so there are lots of possible different avenues to collect data, and it also means that we can reach out to people all over the world and really see how ecolinguistics is helping inform and shape practices beyond academia. So this is shown in a greater awareness of the role language has in shaping those relationships, the relationships that we have with the environment. But also people quite often report having a greater sort of critical understanding of the role the media and
Mm.
companies have in promoting the unsustainable stories that Aaron was just talking about, and sort of having a stronger ability to identify those stories that are
Mm.
harmful and try to change that narrative. So also depending on the field, I often see sort of evidence of greater confidence to communicate ecological concerns in a range of contexts. And I often mention this example. We've in back in 2019, a company, an environmental consultancy agency, quite local to us, based in the UK. reached out to us because they've been using the course, and it was through a junior member of staff who found out about it on social media, and he decided to introduce it to his colleagues, and which then it turned out to be sort of a weekly lunchtime activity for them to chat about the modules they were working on. And only just then the managers found out about that, and they thought, oh, this is amazing, we should all be doing it. And so it was sort of a, bottom up approach of just somebody finding something useful, interesting, and then sharing it, spreading the word. And it just fascinated us. So you can see, the different sort of levels of impact, and what the sort of data that we can collect, that is just not, from linguists, I would say, or people working directly with languages. It was just this environmental consultancy agency. So this is just one of the many, many examples I have. But I would say that I think more broadly, there is a greater concern about nature as well, and sort of the incorporation of these ecolinguistics concepts to daily life, and to which eventually sort of leads to more commitment to pro-environmental behaviors in the long term. So yes.
Thank you. And my question also is, did you track the age of the participants? And if yes, did you notice kind of patterns, as you said, between maybe young adults or Generation Z or the others, X and so on? Did you analyze a little bit their different approaches maybe, or attitudes, emotional attitudes towards the topic?
We've got a sort of, we don't usually tend to ask about their ages in the course certificate forms, but you sort of get a sense of their ages because they tell you, I'm a student, I'm working at the moment, I'm a postgrad student. So you can tell their sort of what generation they are.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
in general, with the younger sort of participants, at least I noticed that there is a deeper concern with the current state of affairs and what can be done. There's a little bit of, obviously, well, we're probably going to talk about the emotions later on, but there's a little bit of this sense of despair and slight guilt, but also this overwhelm and the need to do something, to take action. So I think that's also something that we, or at least in the data, it kind of shows in their accounts.
Yeah, thank you, Mariana. And Jessica, what was your role? What is your role in this research and course?
So, hi everyone, by the way, and thank you for having me on the panel. Arran was mentioning earlier that I basically help out, and I do that as part of my membership officer role for the International Ecolinguistics Association. So basically, I am the person who receives those certificate forms. I have the great privilege of being the first person to actually read those reflections, and I really enjoy it. I dedicate some time every week, every 2 weeks, depending on my schedule, to just sit down and go through the certificates. It's just a great source of enjoyment for me. And I then check the forms and produce a certificate form, which I return to the student. In response, or to add to what Mariana just mentioned, one thing that I noticed is that the vast majority of people who are currently requesting a certificate tend to be students of universities. There's a university in Italy that has embedded the course within a university degree. If I remember correctly, it's a translation or English, some sort of English degree in Sardinia, which really increased the level of popularity of the course. And it's amazing to see the level of engagement of these students in their reflection. Of course, it's part of their university degree, but they are also returning this certificate. I'm not sure if they have to send this reflection as part of their module.
Their program, let's say.
Yeah, the reflections are yeah, they really do show a level of deep engagement that is incredible. And of course, I find that really interesting and fascinating and enjoyable to go through. But even more exciting is when you receive a request for a certificate from a person who has nothing to do with ecolinguistics, nothing to do with linguistics, nothing to do with academia. They may be a freelancer, they may be someone who's in education, but maybe they are I don't know, a primary school teacher, or just working in technology. That happens.
Yeah.
And they send the most amazing reflections, because they are discussing, they are talking about their own revelations, their own journey of discovery of what the course actually meant to them, to the way they relate to nature, to the way they relate to their own way of talking and discussing things. And those are really, really special. So they're less frequent, but really special.
Absolutely. And it's just like for us, for the our emotional intelligence courses or resources, the tendency, of course, is that the people who already are a little bit aware, or they are really looking for that they are into already maybe emotional intelligence somehow, then they contact us. And so in general, I think also that if you are already very sensitive about and you want to improve, the situation of the environment, you look for these opportunities. So our work here also today is to reach other people, the other ones, the ones who don't even think of that, maybe, right? They do not have, because they live their life, but not because, it's anything wrong, but we need to increase the awareness of people who maybe simply just use their language and they read newspapers and everything, and they don't see anything wrong in that. So I think that this is probably having as allies the people, the participants of your courses, our courses, just to show them, oh, you see, there's also this aspect, there's also this discussion going on.
Yeah, so this is the reason why the course is called The Stories We Live By, instead of something to do with the environment. So it can reach a lot of people who are just dissatisfied with the society around them and the basis of the society. So people come into the course from a variety of perspectives, and a lot of them say, and we get this on the certificate, I hadn't thought about these issues at all before, and now I can see how advertising is ruining our lives by encouraging us to buy these things that we don't need, that aren't going to make us happy, and that it's destroying the earth at the same time. So yeah, that is the best thing, when you reach people who aren't the immediate, they aren't already thinking about these things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'd
Thank
love
you.
to quickly add on that and sort of the occupations.
Please.
And I think it's just fascinating because Jessica was mentioning, freelancers, and so often people who are not in academia, so which is great. And I remember when back in 2019, when I just started sort of tracking it, the impact of the course, I sent out a survey and they had to sort of write their occupation, and we had someone who was an artist, a plasterer, beekeeper. So there's a whole wide range. You don't necessarily have to be a linguist or working with languages to do the course. And I think everyone can benefit from engaging with the materials. And it has many advantages. It's free, it's accessible, it's self-directed. You can go as deep as you want with the contents, and it just opens a lot of different possibilities for whatever your interest is, whatever you want to do with it. You can just simply go down there
and I am an example, because I was just checking and looking, and I was also surfing the website of the United Nations, so the Sustainable Development Goals, and I found also this course among their offer. So for example, this was another way where I found the stories we live by. And thank you, Arran, for sharing the course.
Yeah, I thought I should just show that. So yeah, it has recently been accredited by the United Nations SDG Learn, and that's where you found it. And
Exactly.
yeah, we were pleased by that, although we are quite critical about the SDGs,
Of course,
because they're a text and they're very influenced by industry lobbies, agricultural lobbies, government lobbies. So we do treat things like the sustainability goals very critically. But great, this is the right place to get the course known. So I just wanted to show you quickly. So this is the course.
Yeah.
It's based on this book, Ecolinguistics, Language Ecology and the Stories We Live By. And it's got 9 parts, and they go through the different types of stories. So stories are cognitive structures in people's minds that influence how they think, how they talk, and how they act. So they are the stories in our minds, rather than stories that you read to children at bedtime, that kind of story. So the different kinds of stories, there's ideologies, which are stories shared by a group. There's evaluations, which are stories about whether something is positive or negative, good or bad. Identities are stories about what kind of people are. We've got erasure, which is where something important is not mentioned or obscured. And we have salience, which are stories where something important is represented vividly in ways that really help people to connect with it. So of course, we're thinking about nature and how nature can be represented vividly and encouraging people to notice and care about it. And so we look at different kinds of texts in the course. So it could be everything from economics textbooks right through to Japanese haiku poetry. And the question is always, what stories are these texts conveying about the world? And they could be beneficial stories, which are encouraging us to notice and care about nature, or they could be destructive stories, like stories of consumerism, which are encouraging us to destroy the earth. So that's what the course is about.
Absolutely. And I thank you for sharing and showing the structure of the course. That when I also attended and I read, I was thinking that behind each story, there are patterns, as Mariana probably said, and there are emotional patterns. There are emotions that are conveyed, right? While we are reading, we also feel there, you know, we can care about something, or we can really be also angry about the situation and so on. So really, Mariana, how can this course contribute to a better understanding of language as a driver, uh, as a powerful emotional driver, and so having an impact? And then we will be talking also youth well-being.
So what I particularly liked about this event is that there is this strong focus on emotions driving action. And so yes, so now we've known for a while that we humans, we are intrinsically emotional human beings. And this is very, very important, because our emotional response will tell us whether something is important, worth caring or not.
Exactly.
And we need to put this into words. So language here again is the key. So the connection there. And I think the stories we live by brings into focus the role language plays broadly in communicating a specific narrative, as Arran was talking about stories, the shared stories that we have as groups, as communities. And it brings sort of specific attention, perhaps not too explicitly, to the emotional aspect of language, but to the understanding that language is important for building that capacity to respond to the ecological crisis that we're facing. And I think that in doing that, we engage in a kind of sort of introspective exercise, reflecting more broadly on other aspects of our lives. And and there is a quote actually that I have, that I always keep sort of handy because it really resonates with all this. And this is from a course participant. And this person said, "This course put me closer to a better mindset, to a better version of myself, both on academic and personal perspectives." And I think that's really powerful.
Beautiful.
And so seeing that kind of emotional and attitudinal response after taking the course, the one that drives positive action and really transforms people at different levels, is very rewarding, since we're often sort of overwhelmed by all these distressing news, and it's quite easy to sort of lose sight of hope and our sense of agency. So reading this and sort of getting these experiences from people, it's really worthy and it's inspiring.
Absolutely.
And it really sort of links to this question, to this idea of the language being a powerful emotional driver of action. In the end, we need that. We
Yeah.
need emotions, and we need to act accordingly.
Absolutely. And while you were talking, Mariana, I was thinking of the neuroscientist Mary Helen Imordino-Yang, and I shared with Arran recently her recent research, and her famous statement and quote is, "We feel, therefore we learn." So under this neuroscientific aspect, we can't learn without, an emotional engagement. We say that the brain doesn't learn when it's bored, when, they don't care, they are not interested in being interested in something means that we are feeling that emotion, right? And therefore we learn. And what she was also recently sharing was about this transcendent thinking. So supporting the students, and this course for me is really part of this transcendent thinking. There is a way to think beyond our personal interest and going into even civic reasoning. So how can we have our students, our youth and adults be engaged into society, being citizens that really want to do something in our society? So we need to teach this in schools. And so this course can be really, since it is about reflection, an open discussion, going in depth. This is transcendent thinking. It's not, just having the practical answers of yes or no or the multiple choice thing. This is really allowing the students, the people, again, youth and adults, to reflect. And this is the way that maybe, Jessica, also you in your work in high school with your students, right? You made a research, and there's a big program, right, that you are project that you are carrying on. So would you like to share with us this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it connects to what has been said so far quite well, in the sense that we discussed how teenagers or students in schools have been exposed to the issue of climate crisis, rightly so. And it will have inevitably triggered or anyway activated an emotional response. But that emotional response, if it's negative, if it's just, doom-like or put in fear, put in terror, that will be a negative response that it will be associated with the issue of the climate crisis, and also very difficult then to dispel and to change. And if you're afraid of something, you tend to avoid it. Not necessarily, but that's the main kind of reaction that a person may have towards something that they fear. So instead of putting or anyway exposing students to the issue of the climate crisis in a negative way that leaves them afraid of it, and most importantly feeling like they are powerless. First of all, a course like the Stories We Live By can actually give students the tools to feel empowered, because then they become active agents who can recognize patterns in language or in semiotic representation that are around them, to question them, to resist them, to actually take the lead and do something, to change something. So they become more optimistic, they become motivated by hope. So that's a completely different kind of reaction. That is the kind of reaction that we want. So that's what a course like the Stories We Live By can do when used as a pedagogical tool. And
sorry, Jessica, to interrupt you, but this is exactly what emotional intelligence is there for. So to transform what are emotions that are unpleasant emotions, so not useful in order to serve our purpose, into emotions that can really, on the contrary, have an impact, just like hope, optimism, empathy, and all the others that really can drive the impact, the social impact that we want to have in the society, on the society. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. It's a very good point. I'm not that versed with emotional intelligence, something that I find very interesting and I have read about, but that was a very good point to actually put it together so that it makes sense. What I also know from the reading I've done, and I will come to the project I'm conducting as well, is that that kind of feeling of hope, motivation, and optimism is also very important in identity formation for teenagers, and also in the sense of in well-being, which is what we are here to discuss. So when Stefania Tuffi, Professor Stefania Tuffi, who's my principal investigator on the project, it's actually coming to an end, unfortunately, on the project I've been working. So the project is about constructing and deconstructing boundaries, borders in our everyday practices. And the project is in secondary schools in the Liverpool area. She allowed me to explore that through an ecolinguistic lens. And the one thing that we discussed was, being mindful of not going into school and just adding to that burden that students already are exposed to and passively have to take on, that adds to their eco-anxiety. So talking about nature in a completely different way. So I used a lot of the things that Arran discusses in his book, and therefore that it's used in the course as well. And we allowed students to talk about nature in their own terms and to bring in their cultural and linguistic backgrounds. And that was a completely transformative experience for them. They felt safe to discuss nature and culture as one, that really bringing down that border, that dichotomy. And they didn't fear coming across as being different. And here I'm talking about students with a multicultural background or a migrant background, but also students who are perhaps stereotyped and stigmatized and therefore marginalized in their own communities or at the local level, maybe because they have a very strong dialect or a strong accent. So that safe space allowed them to talk about nature in their own terms, as I said, and they then produced reflections and artifacts that really were really moving, and they really spoke for themselves. So just to add to how, the power, that as a testimony to the power of these courses and these activities as pedagogical tools, how important they really are.
Absolutely. And again, the way our students, our youth feel is directly connected to well-being. And well-being is emotional, cognitive, and physical, of course. And so cognitive is directly correlated to the way we think and the way we use our words, right? And the language that then has an impact on the way we feel. So and we can be, we feel hopeful or totally despaired or or wonder or whatever, and then we have a reaction into a response into the physical well-being. So working with this in schools, it's fantastic. It's a program that I really hope you will be able to extend maybe beyond your school and even in other countries, if possible, as with this course. You said that in universities in other countries are using it, integrating this into their courses, and this is definitely a wish that I hope it will come true. So yes, Arran, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things that Stories We Live By course does is that it tries to get to the heart of the issues, because one of the reasons why young people are frustrated is because they've understood the seriousness of the situation we're in, and all the adults around them are just pretending that it's really trivial, that, oh, we just have to recycle and turn the lights off and everything's going to be all right. Or we just have to like buy hybrid cars and it's going to be all right. And there's this huge denial around them. Now, I think if you're feeling stressed about the future of our society, then one way of dealing with it is to share those feelings of distress with the people around you who understand you. If you're distressed and everyone else is saying like, oh, it's not a problem at all, then that's very isolating. That kind of divides people.
True.
So I think it's important not to like disguise the severity of the situation we face and lie to people to try and stop them from feeling distressed. I think it's much better to accept that distress is actually a valid way of dealing with the situation we're in, and that other people feel that as well, and then we come together. Now, the important thing is we come together to do something, and that doing something has to address the root causes of things. So we can't solve the issues that we're facing through consumerism by buying different products. We have to totally change the society we live in, and that's where we get to the level of changing the stories that we live by. And so the course does go to that level. It's not to say it's easy, it's not to say that it's an easy solution, but it is a solution at the right level that could actually make the difference. So I think that is quite healing to understand the reality of our situation, to share that reality with other people, to look at solutions which get to the heart of the matter, and to do everything we can to put those solutions forward, even if we know that it's unlikely to make enough difference in enough time.
True. It's true. And I particularly agree on one point, that is, we are not alone. We need to come together. I think that this is the critical point in the society that we are living in, especially for youth. Do you think that this sense of community, of collective action, has changed over the years? I think so. I feel so. I'm over 50, and I can tell you that when I was a little girl, it was normal, at least in my country, to have, at least weekly meetings with other peers, and just can be also religious meetings with other peers, but we were reflecting, talking together, or political meetings. Or nowadays I feel that our kids, our students, are more alone, in the sense that there are less spaces where they can really community as a verb. I don't know what you think.
Well, yeah, and well, Greta Thunberg had a fantastic impact on young people because she very clearly and obviously told the truth, and she turned that truth into action, and she brought people outside together to take action. And it's just very sad that the pandemic came along just when, and that's the pandemic was, you can't gather together in groups outside with like lots of people, and that kind of threw that movement off. But there were millions of children going outside and bonding over these issues. This is what I want to see. I want to see the truth told and people responding to it. If you look at some kind of films about comets, the comet is coming, it's going to it's certain it's going to destroy the world. And then what do people do in those films? Well, they bond with each other and they start to do things that they had always wanted to do, and they start appreciating life. And, we can try to get something positive out of the situation. You just realize nature is precious, it's disappearing, but let's try to enjoy and appreciate that it's still there.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you. And I can tell you that my son, who is turning 18 next year, in January, he told me, well, we have Elon Musk saying that we can go to Mars. But I don't want to go to Mars, he said. I just want to stay here on planet Earth. And I said, well, then we need to do something, right? Because otherwise, you know that I'm talking always about 6 mass extinction and all this kind of stuff, and we laugh about that. But when he was younger, he said, "But are you serious about that? Can we really go extinct?" And I said, "Well, we are a species, and already happened for others. Why us? We could be, not touched by this. If we continue maybe like that, this could be a possibility. This can be a possibility." And as you said, Aaron, discuss with them, of course, trying to support them in their fear, because I saw my son really going into a kind of anxiety, because he thought, well, but when in 100 years or 1,000 years, he said, or is more, is near the end. So yeah, we need to support them, and also to create the conditions for discussion just like these, and for them then going into action. And maybe Mariana and Jessica, you want to add about also the impact research and the emotional reactions that you read, and that of the people taking the course.
Yeah, so yeah, as I said at the beginning, participants sort of experience a whole range of emotions, and but there are certain patterns that start emerging from over time as you read the forms and as you access all the data. And there's often, in some cases, there's this feelings of sort of guilt, like as in,
Mm,
well, I am also part of a problem. I am also contributing to this.
mm,
Also surprised because is this aspect of, oh, I've never noticed this. I've never noticed how messages around me, from social media to documentaries or the news, can convey sort of different meanings. And there's the shock and the fear and this sort of doom and gloom that Jessica was talking about as well, of knowing how easy it is to manipulate the narratives
mm.
around us by using different linguistic techniques, and how sort of blissfully unaware you can be of them. And so there's that sort of moment of having all this sort of um, feeling of despair and not knowing where to go, sort of confusion at the same time. But equally, quite often comes the realization of, oh, well, there's something I can do. Now I'm feeling inspired to take action and to change the narrative. And I think that, having that sort of feeling, well, there is hope, because we need hope, right? And this is what I generally see the most in the data, is that there is this sort of renewed sense of curiosity to look at language from a different perspective, to realize, well, language is indeed important because it points us to caring, to looking after the right things. So this sort of goes back, to the previous question of how the course can contribute to a better understanding of language as a powerful emotional driver um, of action. So there's this whole sort of roller coaster of experiences, emotion. But I think that sort of applies to any aspect of life, and this is not an exception. And as Arran was saying, we need to sort of be aware that this is the situation. We need to know this how serious it is, and then we can act accordingly, right? We need the truth, but then we need to have the sort of a response that prevents us from, that sort of fight or flight. I don't know what to do, and then you kind of know what to do. And that's
Yeah,
probably where emotional intelligence is hugely, hugely important as well.
thank you, Mariana.
I mean, I think Mariana said it all really well as well. But the one emotion that I wanted to add to this list, and this is not to kind of sing praises to the course, because I think what we discussed today is enough to speak to that. But a lot of people, and this is probably not captured in the certificate requests forms themselves, but a lot of people, when they write to me to request a certificate, they express a level of gratitude that is really genuine. And that gratitude, it just goes to show how much people need these courses to be free, readily available, and also well made, accessible to a wide audience. Because yeah, that's, you know, it's who is going to spend, who is going to invest in creating these resources without getting anything back? It's not,
also role modeling somehow, right? It's for putting out there in the world something available for everyone that is for free. And
yeah,
just because we believe that it's relevant and that can have a social impact. So this is the idea, and it's
and
absolutely, yeah,
people are grateful for it,
yeah,
and we need more of it, basically.
definitely.
Yeah, so the course is free, and it's run by volunteers. Like Jessica contributes a lot of time to it. When we started the course, we even had 22 volunteer tutors who were giving tutoring in 11 different languages, so free tutoring. And we had to stop that because there was like 100 people taking the course, and then there's like 300, there's 400, and then it got into the thousands, and then it wasn't fair because the tutors could only do a fraction of it. So we
Of
started with that.
course.
Yeah, so it's free, and the other thing is you can access the course without having to register. So you can access it and you can see everything. You don't have to register, but a lot of people do. And that's the spirit, because it's not about making a profit. It's about sharing and reciprocity.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
because it's free, people will volunteer their time, which they wouldn't if we were like charging £100 every time you register for the course.
That's true. That's true. And this is reciprocity, as you said, and the fact that they get, probably they get, as I received, more than what they can then give back, So because it's really something that is recharging, inspiring, but also it gives practical, at least as per my experience, practical ways to re being able to reframe and reimagine what, and also being able to understand, and also to move away from maybe statements or words that we didn't pay attention before, and then on the contrary you realize, oh no, they could have used this, or I can express myself in a different way. So Aaron,
Yeah,
there's a next step,
yeah,
right?
just before we get on to that, there's
Yeah.
one more thing to say, and that is that when we're looking at language, we're looking at logos, ethos, and pathos. So logos is the very rational, data-orientated, objective, logical way of writing. And then pathos is writing and images which really engage with people's emotions. What you find is that environmental discourse is very logos orientated. It's very much logic and rationality, and doesn't engage the emotions. And therefore, it's very easy to ignore it. And this is the knowledge action gap, that just because people have knowledge about climate change, that doesn't mean that they will take any action.
True.
So we critique those kinds of discourses, especially when they're representing nature as just a resource. And we're searching for discourses which will stimulate emotions and encourage people to care, or to feel loss for the destruction of nature, to identify with the victims, and to feel some joy, because the kind of solutions we're talking about involve sharing and spending time with other people and reconnecting with nature and rewilding, and just creating a better environment and a better world. So they can bring emotions of joy as well. So yes, using that pathos to engage people at an emotional level, And that's the kind of language that we need when we're searching for new stories to live by.
Thank you, Arran. And while you were explaining this beautifully, I remember the words of Brian Eno, the artist, the musician, who really said this. He said, art that is directly connected to the emotional, the emotions and feelings of people, and pathos, as you were sharing, can contribute, in the sense that we need to move away from figures and numbers and the logic of the environment described that way, but support through poetry, through music, through paintings, that are directly in contact with our inner self. Because you don't need to explain a painting, you don't need to explain music, you don't need to explain poetry, but they can convey messages and emotional feelings, right, about the environment, about us in this landscape. So definitely, also this is a transformation that we need.
Yeah, we do need it. And it's really important that the poems are not kept in the poetry section of a bookshop. The poems and the poetic language should be right there in the environmental science section. So like Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, she's a scientist, and Silent Spring was scientific work that was expressing how pesticides cause the whole ecosystem to collapse.
Yeah.
And she wrote it in a lyrical and poetic way that engaged people and made them care about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to really transform the mainstream discourses and put the poetry into them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arran. So we are really at the end of our webinar, but there are next steps, right, Arran?
Yeah, so I do want to talk about this new course that we're
Yes.
creating. So
And then please, sorry to interrupt you, please, if you have questions, of course, please type them in the chat so we can, because we really have a few minutes left. And if you have, please, we will read at least one.
Yeah, so it's very good because we have some funding from Erasmus Plus to make a new online course. It's called The Search for New Stories to Live By, Eco-Narrative and Ethical Leadership. And I can show you what we've got so far, and you're the very first people to see this. So here it is. So this is the new course. And we start off by looking at leaders who change the way that we see the world. So we define leadership as an ability to change the reality of other people. We look at inspiring leaders from around the world. This new course is more multicultural than the previous course. We go right from creation stories right through to ecological identity. We look at poetic activists. We look at the way that texts can enchant the world and enchant the readers. So that's very much about emotions there.
Yeah.
We look at ethics and how text can convey a vision for a better world. And then there you go, emotions. So that's very much about how language can engage people's emotions and encourage them to care and to act. And then lastly, we go right into apocalyptic imagery, which people shy away from. But Rachel Carson's Silent Spring starts with a 2-page apocalyptic tale, and it is really the starting point of the entire environmental movement. So we look at effective ways of using apocalyptic images. And then very exciting, we have critical architectural awareness. So actually being able to go out and read buildings and read gardens and read zoos and reveal the stories that they are conveying about the world. And then we've got the extra materials and the certificate. Jessica's going to be delighted that we're going to have thousands more certificates coming in. So this is the new course. I'm hoping it'll be ready in about a year.
Beautiful. And I love that also architecture is included, because I read a lot, I studied a lot about biomimetics. And so the way we can copy the environment, and so the way they build, so insects or all the other species build their home, and we can actually through the biomimetics to copy and paste the way they work, the way they behave together to build new homes. So architecture can follow this. So I think it's a very, very inspiring set of different opportunities to discuss and discover and learn more. So thank you also for this course, and maybe it will be the chance to rediscuss and have a new conversation maybe next year, or when the course is launched and you have another impact research about the results and the findings that you can investigate. So we are at the end. I'm not sure, I don't see in the chat questions, but please, if you have you can text one, and if you have final, you, Jessica, Mariana, and Arran, final comments, final notes, please just share them.
I'd just like to thank you for inviting us, and it's something that we are all very excited about, and we love the kind of community that is generated through courses like this. And there's nothing magical about them. It's very simple. The courses just ask you to question the reality that you've always just taken for granted, but is reality that's only one possible reality, and you can find ways of creating new realities, and it's very liberating to do that, and that's what brings people together.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to quickly say thank you for having us today. I was very much looking forward to this panel, and I think we've sort of opened the conversation about how important these topics are. And please, do the course, join in, and just explore it. And if you want to tell us about how the course has impacted any aspects of your life, just feel free to reach out. I love hearing from people, and their stories. So yes, please go ahead.
And maybe if you can put the link in the chat, and also maybe saying you show that, Arran, but just you have it, and maybe just say that it's available again for free and for everyone. Thank you. Jessica, final word.
Just echoing what Mariana said, I was also really looking forward to taking part in this panel today. First experience of this kind, and a very positive one, and just a really, really great platform to be in, to just share my experience of working on stories we live by from an admin perspective, but also using it as an inspiration to then inform research on the project I've been conducting. So thank you so much for providing this platform. And if I may, I can share the digital exhibition of the artifacts that we produced.
Please do.
Projects, just to show you what. Am I already sharing?
No, not yet.
There we go.
Yeah.
So this website is still being finalized by our PGR research assistant, Emily. But basically here you've got the exhibition, and she is grouping the artifacts thematically. So we've got engagement with nature of a student who loves spending time going to the park to ride his bike, of a student representing his environmental identity, and also as a Liverpudlian, all of the things that come together in this drawing here. We've got, trying to give you a bit of a taste for everything. We've got beautiful poems and drawings from students with migrant background, also from the diverse ethnic repertoire of the UK. So Scotland in that case, Egyptian, and we've got some really cool poems. I'm not sure if they're up yet. I think poems still need to go up. But yeah, so the website should be up and running fully very soon. So I think people can see or I can share the link with you at a later date. But yeah, that's the kind of things the students can create when given the opportunity.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So if you want to rewatch this conversation, I'll put in the chat also the link to LinkedIn for 6 Seconds Europe, and we will be posting the recording there and then on our YouTube channel, so you can find us on social media, especially LinkedIn. You can find us also on Facebook and Instagram. We don't use them any longer, so we are much focused on LinkedIn and then YouTube, just to share our videos. So I just want to thank you again, Arran, Mariana, Jessica, for this conversation and for your work. Please continue doing this, and hopefully there will be even many other courses, and maybe you will have also students creating their own courses and maybe sharing. This is also what we want to do. And next year, maybe I will invite you in another panel, because also 6 Seconds is really focused on our social impact strategy is on youth well-being. And we want to work also on the climate change area and environment area, and we have programs that we already activated over the years, but next year will be a very important one for us, and so maybe there will be another chance to have a conversation with you. So thank you again, and thank you to all the participants and all the people who will be watching, all the people who registered and beyond. So thank you and good night. Thank you, all of you.